So today we have Sunil with us. Sunil needs no introduction. Sunil has around 35 years of industry experience. Uh, he is working as a principal consultant with Thoughtworks. He wrote a book on enterprise agility. The book is on Amazon. We will be sharing the link for his book. Uh, One of my favorite book. Have a look. And we will today try to understand from Sunil how to find out the symptoms if something is going wrong in our agile transformation, our agile adoption journey, how to identify the anti-patterns and how to deal with them, right? How to pivot. If you guys have watched WWE, the World Wrestling matches, here is Rock Dwayne Johnson. If whenever he used to come, he used to shout out, if you smell the Rock is cooking. Today the shout out is, if it smells, then Sunil can guide us to find it. With that, enough from me. I will hand it over to Sunil. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sunil.
All right. Thank you, Vishal. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. It's morning here from where I am in Singapore. Thank you all for joining in, for sparing your precious time to be with us today. At the outset, I would like to thank Vishal and the organizing team, for giving me this opportunity. I was just saying that, after COVID and with this Zoom, etc., coming in, it's so convenient now for all of us to connect across the world, and this is a great opportunity for me to connect with an audience which is spread all over, especially more so in the United States as well. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Before I begin, a request to all of you is to make this as interactive as you can, right? Because I think there is something which I definitely will share, and maybe I perhaps may not be saying anything new, but just giving my perspective on what I believe are some of the commonly found agile smells. But I think it's very good to remember that this is not just a one-way instructor-driven learning, which is of course going to be the main part, but there is tremendous value in group learning as well. So I would request you to participate actively, share your experiences, your learnings. If there are any other patterns or any other underlying causes that you see, please share, right? Because we will all learn through this whole process. Okay. So let me share my screen and then we can start. Right. Okay. So agile smells, right? That's the topic. And before I get into that, thanks for the generous introduction. Vishal, just again a summary which I have created in terms of my experience. Yeah, 23 years in IT, overall 34 years, 13 plus years in ThoughtWorks, worked across multiple domains. This is my book, the cover of the book, which got published about 5 years ago. And I enjoy speaking at conferences, spoken at conferences across all 6 continents physically, and also delivered a TEDx talk as well. I think one of the achievements for me has been that IBM, used my quote on their website for their offering on enterprise agility, and I think they probably revamped the website, but at least to have been on that website for even a short while, I think it was an honor for me, which I wanted to share with you. Okay, so that's about me. And before I forget, I'm always available to connect on LinkedIn. I promise you that if you reach out to me or send me a message, I will get back to you. So let's stay connected. Let's learn from each other. All right, so some disclaimers, a couple of them, right? One is that the scope of the talk is limited to team level spells. So we are not talking about, leadership issues or some engineering issues and things like that. Commonly found team level smells, which I thought would be most relevant for most of the audience here who are going to be Scrum Masters or who are already Scrum Masters. Okay? And the other thing is that it is assumed that the audience has the knowledge of the basic concepts of Agile. So, for example, if I'm talking of velocity, I'm presuming that you already know what that is because we don't have the bandwidth as well as the need, I guess, to explain those basic concepts, right? So, just these couple of disclaimers before we begin. Now, when uh, when we smell something which is unusual, and mostly unusual smells are bad smells, uh, we know there is something wrong, right? And we have to find out the underlying cause and fix it. So a bad smell by itself has no meaning because it's just a symptom. But the root cause is something else. I mean, for example, you've gone on a vacation, you come back home, you open the house after a week or two, and you smell something, right? And you need to figure out, right? What is it? Is it some dead animal in the house? Is it some garbage which got left out, or which you didn't throw it away before you went on vacation? Is that rotting, or is it something else? So you got to figure out, what that thing is because the smell obviously is telling you that something is wrong. Now there are some smells where you have to react immediately. Like for example, if you smell something burning, then obviously you got to act fast and figure out where that's happening. For example, if an electric wire has got burnt, you will smell it, right? And you will know that there's a problem somewhere, so you have to take action immediately, right? So a bad smell is essentially only a symptom. It's not the problem, right? So unless you look at the root cause, it won't go away. And the other point is, it won't go away just by masking it. So again, giving the example of a bad smell in the house, if you use a room freshener without addressing the root cause or removing the source of what is causing the bad smell, it's the masking is going to be only temporary, right? So yeah, how long can a room freshener last, right? And it's not sustainable to keep spraying it again and again. So the point is that, yeah, the focus has to be on removing the source of the bad smell rather than masking it. Sure, you might want to mask it temporarily because you can't tolerate it till you find it, right? But that's not the solution to removing the smell. It's just giving you some very tactical temporary relief. Okay. So yeah, so let's look at some smells. These are smells which I think I have found them to be fairly common when teams are adopting agile ways of working. And I guess it's just a journey, but you need to look out for those and not just look out for the smells, but once you have a smell, you need to go and see what is the real reason why that smell is happening, or what is the root cause of the smell, and what is the real problem which is there. And there could be one or many causes for each of these smells. The smells I'm sharing are in no particular order of importance, right? It depends on the team in terms of what they are facing and what challenges they have. So let's begin, right? The first one is spillover of user stories, right? So you have a sprint, maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Generally, we see a 2 week sprint. And what you're seeing is that a lot of the user stories are spilling over. Now, again, it's not a perfect world where you will complete exactly all the user stories which you may which you decided as part of sprint planning. There will be some spillover, right? But I would say that if you are not able to complete 80 to 90% of the stories which you have committed as part of sprint planning, then that is a smell, right? Because the point is, really, you're really not sure about what that capacity is, and in terms of the additional commitments you can take, or additional work that you can do, or additional functionality you can build, it is just slowing the team down. So here could be some potential causes for spillover of user stories. First is incomplete analysis or details. Right? So what happens is in a rush, we have to give work to the developers to start something. This happens when the BAs and the analysts are scrambling to get the stories ready for development. Sometimes it's that pressure. Sometimes it's a skill set as well. So if the story is like ready for development and a developer picks up, but then finds out that some details are missing, some clarification is needed, the analysis is not thorough, yeah, then it's going to cause delay. And the developer is going to say, sorry, I can't work on this unless this is clarified, right? Or what about this scenario which has not been thought? What do we do about that? So if it goes back and forth for any reason, right? And because of details being missing or analysis not being done thoroughly, then that is one reason why that story will not get complete during the sprint, and it will spill over. Okay? Um, the other is stories are too large. Now, this is a typical problem which we find in many organizations where uh, they say, hi, there is no way we can make the story smaller than this, right? And we all know about the invest principle. I'm sure you heard of it, right? Independent, negotiable, valuable, small, estimatable, and testable. Um, the rule is that the story should be as small as possible, subject to it not violating, grossly violating the other variables in the invest principle. So, story splitting, story writing actually is more an art than a science. And there are ways in which you can split stories which you think are not splittable, but that needs experience and that needs a skill to really understand, what is the granular level of the story, which will still deliver value, all right? And you can still develop it properly. So one example is a very, very simple example is stories based on CRUD, right? Create, read, update, and delete. Each of these can be separate stories. So maybe a create is easy, but a delete is very difficult, right? I mean, if you have to delete something, then there has to be a lot of validations, etc. done. So you might create separate stories for these. Fine, the developer may say that, yeah, it's easy for me to do all these together. That's fine. But it's also possible that one of these may be very, very difficult. And it's best to have that as a separate story. So we need to look at creative ways to, uh, uh, make these stories as small as possible. Another example is using social media for login. Yeah, you could have login through Facebook, or you could have login through Google. And this is not a single story. They are absolutely two separate stories because the APIs for Facebook and the APIs for Google are very, very different, right? But if you combine it into a single story, it's very likely that it won't finish, Yeah, I mean, and there are so many examples here. Okay? The next one I think is pretty obvious: blockers and dependencies. Uh, yeah, we know that sometimes there are things which we depend on other teams. Sometimes we depend on other parties also to give us some information. Then the point is that if you take up a story in the sprint which has this uncertainty around the dependencies, or you have not foreseen what can block it, then if that story gets blocked, it's half done, maybe it's not even started, and it will never finish in the same sprint. And then again, it's just a waste for it to lie in work in progress as a story which is half done because of a blocker or a dependency. So you got to watch out for, picking up stories where the blockers and dependencies are not perhaps addressed or considered, in advance to say that, yes, we don't see a risk of this getting blocked once we begin development, right? And the last one is overcommitment. Yeah. Sometimes it happens that the team actually is struggling with knowing exactly how much their capacity is. And maybe because of pressures or other things, right, that the team is committing more. And obviously, if you commit more than what your capacity is, then you are going to fall short, right? And therefore, some work will not finish. And that's going to be spilling over. So I just want to take a pause here to see if you have any questions or any other thoughts or any other causes of story spilling over that you see. No? All good? Okay.
Sunil,
Yes.
Vishal here.
Yes, Vish.
So if we look at the four potential causes, those you have highlighted, uh, with my experience, I want to categorize those. The first two with the refinement cadence for the requirements or the user stories and features.
Yeah.
Then the third one with the flow in the sprint of a Scrum team, and the last one is with the planning aspect, right? Uh,
Yes. Correct.
okay, cool.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely well said. And,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that this list is exhaustive. There could be many more, right? But in my
Absolutely,
experience, these are the main four reasons why, spillovers happen. But if anybody has any other reason which they are facing or a cause that could be there, please share because, we will all learn, as I said earlier, right? But you're right, Vishal. These can be categorized. If you dig even further, it's related to those aspects which you just called out. So that's brilliant. Okay.
absolutely. So yeah, so these are the major ones. There can be lot many with our experiences. I don't want to go into that. However, I have a question. You said create, read, update, and delete things that we can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely with the product backlog, right?
Yeah.
However, delete is the most difficult, and I think that's the one of the major reason why we have seen after agile team starts and eventually the product backlog is elongated, and sometimes we never know what is lying downwards or at the bottom of the list, which is like with the less priority. And sometimes at the refinement we don't even remember what we thought at that point of time. Why
Exactly.
this delete aspect is very hard that you emphasized on, I want to please understand that.
See, I think the point is right. It's very easy to create an account, but a delete might require a lot of validations, right? Which you may not need while creating an account or reading or updating it. Okay. So a delete could be, for example, if you're deleting something where you are there is some data which you need to fetch from other system to make sure that yeah, whatever data is going to get wiped out, is it valid or not? So dependencies on other systems, there could be conditions in terms of, okay, for example, if it's a bank and you've taken a loan, right, and there is still some outstanding to pay, you need to validate that, right, and see why. So you can't just delete something so easily. That's my experience. Creating something, updating something is easy, but deleting is. I mean, that's just one example which I'm giving, right, where uh, uh, a part of the functionality can be more difficult, which seems like similar to the other things that you can do, but sometimes more validations can come in, which can make it difficult. I hope that addresses.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sunil. There are few that the participants have attendees have experienced in the chat. We also get changing priorities, high priority support work comes in, right? Team
Mhm.
members availability, medical issues,
Yeah,
also
yeah,
deletion
yeah.
size saying also deletion is time consuming, have
Mm,
dependencies. Just want to address that on the go. Over to you. Thank you
fantastic.
so much for stopping
Yeah,
and addressing a few things.
yeah. I think in the interest of time, I'll have to go a little bit fast, right? We're already 25 minutes into it, and I still have 7 more smells to go. Okay.
Yeah,
So moving on, erratic velocity. Now, why this is a smell and a problem? Because if your velocity is not largely consistent, you don't know what your team capacity really is, right? So if your velocity is varying too much, you don't know on what basis to make the sprint commitment, and this becomes a problem. Okay, so and what could be some of the reasons for this? One is inconsistent sizing. Now, I was working with a client in Italy where we were teaching this to the team in terms of how do you size Like, a 2-pointer should be bigger than a 1-pointer, and a 3-pointer is bigger than a 2, and it goes on, right? But what we found was their velocity was quite erratic. So what we did was we checked the cycle time of the stories based on the size. Okay, so what you should see is that the cycle time for smaller stories should be shorter than the cycle time for bigger stories, right? It's a logical thing. So an 8-pointer story should take more time to do than a 2-pointer story. But here that thing was erratic. Sometimes a 2-pointer was taking longer, sometimes the 8-pointer was taking, less time. There was no pattern there. So we realized that sizing is a problem. Yeah, the team is really not sure how to size it. So we had to take them through a session on doing sizing, benchmarking stories against a particular size. And then I think, that problem got solved. So if you have erratic velocity, maybe this is one reason you might want to check with the cycle time of stories based on size, and that will tell you something. The second bit is about, capacity leakage. Okay, you said, you do something, but you're doing some work which is not related to the sprint goal or to the sprint commitment. There's some extra work coming in. Sometimes people get pulled out for doing something else. So any kind of capacity leakage, which is not contributing to the sprint commitment or the sprint goal for that particular sprint, is going to cause your velocity to drop, and that's a problem. So watch out for capacity leakages. Any work other than the work which you have committed for the sprint is potentially a leakage. Okay. Blockers and dependencies, we already spoke about this. If that happens, the story is stuck. Obviously, you can't count it as done, so it won't get counted towards your velocity. Is is there for a lot of smells. The underlying cause is blockers and dependencies. Okay. And the last bit is the part-timers in the team. So we have seen scenarios where, an agile team, the core roles are supposed to be full-time dedicated to that same team. But if you have people who are working across multiple projects or multiple teams, then again, it is going to slow down the team because there is no rhythm, there is no flow. And if somebody has something urgent and needs to go to the other team and do it, our capacity in this team, where that person is supposed to be spending most of the time, will get. Okay. So these are some of the reasons why velocity would be erratic, and you need to address, the root cause. Again, as I said, these are commonly found root causes, but there could be more. But yeah, this is something which I wanted to share in terms of what I have seen, what causes erratic velocity. Any thoughts?
Do we want to take one question? There is an interesting question from Pragya in the chat, Sunil.
Yeah.
Let's say team achieve its sprint goal, but still has spillover. How is that considered?
How have you achieved a sprint goal? So I think, sprint goal is a big one, right? It's a motherhood statement. Okay. And every thing that you said that you would do in the sprint, right, is linked to the sprint goal. So if something is spillover, I think I am finding it difficult to understand how you can say that the goal is fully achieved. I don't know, right? I mean, it might need a separate discussion for me. Maybe I'm missing something here. But to me, if you have not completed, whatever you have said, it's how can you say that you have achieved a goal, right? I think it's not so much about the goal. The goal is a guiding factor for you to choose and make the sprint commitment. The goal itself, achieving the sprint goal, it's something which is a lamppost, right? It's not an outcome. The outcome is what you have marked as done, right, for your stories, and which you can count as working software. So yeah, you can say, oh yeah, 95% of the goal is achieved, and that's okay. But it's not an outcome. It's just a lamppost, right?
Can we say, Sunil, during the sprint, the goalpost was changed, something was added in between?
It's always possible.
Okay, thanks.
But the point is, if so, this we are talking here of erratic velocity, right? So if
Yeah,
something got added, it's got half done, and then you take something new, it's going to impact your velocity. But if something
yes.
gets swapped, right, of the same size, then it should not change your velocity, what you're going to deliver. right? So it
Yep.
depends on how you manage that change which comes in mid-sprint.
Thanks, Sunil.
All right, moving on. Frequently missing sprint commitments. Okay. This is again like many of these smells are overlapping and related, but it's again important to see if and this is again linked to spillover as well. But there could be other reasons why this can happen, right? One is external pressure. Okay, so somebody comes and says, no, we have to do this, and the capacity is just not there, right? And then you just take on more just to avoid uh, maybe a confrontation at that point in time to say, yeah, we'll try and do this, and then you miss that. So that could be one reason why there is pressure, and you take work which is beyond your capacity, right? Rework is another reason why you can miss a sprint commitment, and rework is in terms of the story, again, as I said in the first spell, being incomplete, goes back and forth. Somebody has to work on it, and it is not moving smoothly. It's not, I would say, refined properly, and that rework can cause this problem, right? And again, the last one is blockers and dependencies in terms of the, uh, the thing which causes teams to miss out on sprint commitments. Okay. Any other reasons here? No? All right, let's move. Team member becoming a bottleneck. Okay, we often see this. I mean, we are supposed to be a self-organizing and a team which has all the core skills, right? But sometimes a single team member can become a bottleneck, and that can slow the whole team down when that happens, right? Here's some of the things, right, which can happen. Again, working across multiple projects, that's a blocker. And you depending on someone, uh, and if that person goes away and works on some other team, and well, just spreading their capacity across multiple teams, that is going to be causing a blocker in terms of the team member. Okay. The second is inadequate capacity, which means that uh, you have just one person where you actually might need two or three people to perform that same role. Okay. So, for example, standard guideline for projects, and this is a very, very standard guideline, so please don't take it literally, but is that for every four developers, there should be one business analyst and one tester, quality analyst. Okay, that's the ratio that you start off. And obviously, depending on the context, you can vary all of that bit is there. But let's say you have 10 developers and you have only one BA. That BA will not be able to produce enough stories to keep the 10 developers busy, right? That's a problem. Or sometimes it's possible that the tester is only one, the developers are producing a lot of work, and then the testing gets blocked. So if you're not addressing the capacity properly, then whoever is the team member or members, right? They it's not their fault. They are doing their best. But the thing is, because they are few in number, the dependency on them is very high, and things get blocked. And imagine if that person falls sick or goes on vacation or what it is, right? Then you have a problem, right? Which will slow down and block it. And the last, but sometimes I've seen this pattern is there's a hierarchy within the team. Now, a team is not supposed to have hierarchy, right? There is no boss or, you need to seek approval for what. But sometimes the tech lead uh, is like acting as the pseudo boss of the team. So it means that uh, if the developer has completed a story, unless the tech lead reviews it, it does not move. And if the tech lead is busy or not available or what, then that's a problem. Sometimes it's possible that you can have a product owner also, right? Who's again, right, behaving like a boss of the team. And so if there's a dependency on the PO for something, then that again can cause things to get slowed down or to be blocked. So we have to try and see how, while these roles have their Uh, they are niche areas where they contribute, but you've got to see how, it doesn't become a I would say a bottleneck when it comes to the flow of work. So that's where, sometimes the hierarchy comes into the picture. And it's a pseudo hierarchy. It's not defined on paper. On paper, it's a team which has no hierarchy, but informally there are hierarchies which are there which can slow the team down. So you need to watch out for this. Just wondering if anybody has seen this pattern and how have you addressed it? Any comments?
On the first one, working across multiple projects, that's a valid one of the causes
Mm.
for hampering the self-organization uh,
Yeah,
among the team. Uh, so that's why in somewhere I read that we should have exclusive team members for the teams, along with BA and product owners. Product owners can be shared, however, that is also debatable.
yeah, yeah.
From the hierarchy within the team, I have seen a very interesting pattern on this. Uh, so we we were exercising from process ceremonies perspective, Scrum guidelines, principles. From Flow, we had some Kanban practices like adhering to WIP and all. And there was a big emphasis on the extreme engineering practices. So when we were trying to have pairing for some senior folks and um for a novice, for a freshers, we were really struggling for to get it done. However, we have seen tremendous results out of that. Uh, the learning curve for the freshers or the inexperienced team members, when they uh, paired with the experts or the senior team members, the learning curve was really shortened. We have
Yeah,
seen some good results, a quick onboarding
yeah.
with that. However, yeah, that is one of the things that we have observed with hierarchy, how it plays.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think well said, Lushal. I think it's an important point you brought out that how do you shorten the learning curve? And yeah, I fully agree with you in my experience as well. Pairing or shadowing someone is really the best way to learn. It requires a bit of investment, but it pays off big time. So yeah. Okay, moving on. Excess WIP, right? Now we all know that work in progress is not good, right? You've invested something until it gets done and the end user or the customer doesn't get the value. It's really something which is not ideal. Okay. And here could be some reason, right? One is change in sprint commitment. As we said, somebody comes in, adds on to the scope. They said, no, whatever you committed, you must do, and you must also do this, right? So if that kind of pressure is there, then something is going to fall off the plate, and it is going to be remaining half done, and then it would lead to an excess WIP, right? Rework again, back and forth, the story not getting done, so it will always remain in progress, either in development or in analysis or wherever it might be. So it never gets done. So again, that increases the WIP. And again, blockers and dependencies, which again is one problem for many of the smells. It's also, if something is blocked, it is WIP, right? It can't move. Yeah, until the problem is solved, it will remain as part of WIP, which is not ideal. Okay. So anything to add here? Any other reasons why WIP could be large?
Anybody wanna shout out about work in process, work in progress limits, how they play a role here? Uh, Devashish have his hands raised. Go ahead, Devashish.
Yeah, so one of the things that I see is capacity issues that could
Hmm.
cause sometimes, say, you have a tester team, three testers, two of them suddenly go out because either sickness or leave or something,
Yeah,
and things are piling up over there. I've seen that a lot happening in some of my teams.
right, right. That's a valid reason why WIP can happen. But I would urge you to look at it not for a single sprint, right? For example, if it's somebody falls sick or they are on vacation, that's a temporary thing, right? But if you see a pattern where WIP is large across multiple sprints, then that is something to watch out for. A one-off will always happen. You will have people falling sick. You'll have something or the else which is coming in, and a little bit of a drop or an increase in WIP and drop in velocity is going to happen from time to time. The point is, does it get converted into a pattern? And if there's a pattern to that, then that's something.
Yeah. So for excessive WIP, there is one more real downside to this. Once once this anti-pattern comes into your team or into your flow, then uh, no matter what, your team members and the whole team, they are subjected to multitasking, and it drastically reduces your efficiency and the quality of the deliverables as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think you brought out a great point about multitasking. People don't realize that when you work across two tasks, it is not 50 plus 50% that you can do. You actually lose 20% of the capacity when you do multitask across two things. So it becomes 40 plus 40. Okay. When you
Yeah,
multitask across three things, and this is empirical data, okay, this is not some which, right? There's enough studies which are being done to show the loss which happens in capacity due to multitask. So if you are multitasking across three things, you lose one third of the capacity. Okay. So things like that. So that's something which is a good point that you brought about. Sure. Yeah.
yeah. And the interesting aspect that you emphasized, Sunil, earlier, that if we see excessive WIP pattern, then we really need to retrospect
Yeah.
why we are getting subjected to multitasking or handling few things at the same time. What
Yeah.
is blocking the flow, and how we can streamline it, how we can
Right.
bring some more lean way into our flow. And
Yeah.
that's where the servant leadership aspect will really chime in to help the team to unblock a few things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. So then you need to really go to the root cause, right? Because if it becomes a pattern, then that means there is something which is deep and which needs to be addressed, and it's maybe quite serious also, which maybe a systemic issue also. So you need to look at that.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Sunil.
Thanks. Moving on, defects. Right. This is a smell which I think all of us can see, and there could be some reasons. Some defects are going to happen from time to time, but if there is a pattern that you're seeing a lot of defects, then that's a smell, right? Because yeah, it is something which is a waste in terms of fixing the defects. It doesn't add to value added work, right? It's a rework. It's a fix. There could be some reason why defects are there. One is lack of engineering practices. Okay, if you don't use the right engineering practices, I mean, I can tell you from our experience in Thoughtworks, we have delivered software to clients who have gone live with no major or critical defects. Okay. And one of the reasons for that is our rigor around engineering practices, test-driven development, test automation, continuous integration, writing unit tests properly. Doing all of these things, basically, you are using the engineering practices to build quality in. And I think many of us are not able to appreciate the importance of engineering practices in the way in which they contribute to building high quality software. So this is one reason why I see. So the team may be good, the Scrum Master is good, the flow is good, but yeah, if you don't follow good engineering practices, it is going to lead to some problems which could have been avoided if you followed those engineering practices. The next one of the big ones which I see is poorly defined acceptance criteria. Okay. And then if the acceptance criteria is not thorough, right? If it's not thought through fully, then somebody might come and say, yeah, but what about that, right? And that's a defect. Then you get into an argument that, oh, it was not specified in the story, so we didn't do it. But the acceptance criteria said this, we thought it meant this, but then it means something else, right? There could be a lot of things because of poorly defined acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria to me is very critical. Again, I have seen many teams not give enough attention to defining acceptance criteria properly and getting a sign off from the product owner that this is what it is, right? Anything beyond this is not going to be a part of this, right? You can't call it a defect because if it's not there. And what you get is what you have clearly defined as part of acceptance criteria. The third is the iron triangle. People who know project management know this iron triangle, which has three variables, right? Time, scope, and cost. And the rule is that you need to keep at least one thing variable. Okay? But in many scenarios, we see that all three variables are fixed. Time is fixed, cost is fixed, scope is fixed. And then scope never remains fixed. You always have something coming in, right? Something changes, whatever it is. And when that happens, then the variable which is not called out in the iron triangle is compromised, which is quality.
Quality.
Yeah, because your time is fixed, your cost is fixed, there's tremendous pressure to deliver on time. People take shortcuts for quality because they don't have a choice. They just don't have a choice, right? So fixing the iron triangle to me is one of the root causes of defects, and if you're seeing poor quality, you need to look at and see if your iron triangle is fixed, and if it's so, that's a big flag, So yeah, and the last one is believing that quality is somebody else's problem. It's not my problem, right? We always say in Agile that quality is every single person's responsibility, regardless of whether you are part-time, you're a specialist, you are a core team member. You must do your bit to ensure that you are building quality right from the beginning. The BA says, I've done my bit. Now, if there's a defect, it's not my problem. That's not how that mindset should be. Everybody is responsible in the team, is responsible for building quality in from whatever role they might be playing. So blaming, someone for poor quality and saying it's not my problem, that's a mindset issue. And that's a big reason why, defects happen and are taken casually. I'm sure there are many, many other reasons why defects happen, but I did want to call out some of the important ones here in terms of the causes of defects. Any thoughts?
Any thoughts on defects? We all have loved defects. Yes, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, regarding that last point, I think here it's so important as a Scrum Master to involve the manager or managers who supervise the team members from a management perspective, and really work with them on not making individual goals. And something that you might hear and that should really call your attention is when you hear somebody in a daily stand-up say, oh, I finished my sprint.
Yes.
Because they're measured by how many front-end story points did I deliver by their manager. That's what you might find out. So that's something for you to work on as a Scrum Master.
Absolutely. And that point is coming, you raised a very valid point. I'm just going to bring it up, within a few minutes to see that is one of the causes of one of the spells. Okay. But great point. Yeah. If you're looking just for yourself and you're not bothered about something else that's happening, it's a team sport, right? It's like a football team. Somebody can just say, oh, I made so many passes, so I'm done, right? It's not my problem if somebody didn't score a goal or we didn't win the match, right? It's not like that, right? So yeah, it's a team sport, and if you don't behave like that, then that's an issue. Okay. The next one, this is another very common one. Ceremonies take too long, right? Stand-up meetings going on 30 minutes, 45 minutes, just rambling, right? So yeah, some of the reasons are these, right? Lack of regular conversations. So people boil up, what they want to talk about, or a conversation is needed, which is not happening, as and when it is needed. If you're boiling up all the points to discuss and wait for that ceremony to happen, then there is always going to be more to talk about, which is not going to be enough for the time that you have allocated for the ceremony. No Scrum ceremony should last more than 1 hour, unless there is an exception. Yeah. But in a usual case, including your sprint planning, backlog grooming is continuous. So that's different backlog refinement, right? But your retrospective, your sprint planning, all of these, should be finished, within 1 hour. But what you usually see is, a sprint planning becoming a backlog refinement meeting. A backlog refinement meeting becomes a requirement gathering meeting, and things like that, right? So a 1 hour meeting can easily turn into 3 hours. The other pattern which I've seen is there are 30 people on the call, only 3 are talking, the rest have their video switched off. You don't know whether they're mentally there in the meeting or not, what they're doing. So all of these, right, are essentially just wastages, which you need to avoid. But one of the main reasons is if you need to have regular conversations and if you're boiling them up, and waiting for that to be discussed in a ceremony, then that's a problem. Next is lack of discipline. Yeah, people just come in, talk something else. There's no focus, right? In a stand-up meeting, right, you got to give your update very, very crisply, and you got to really make sure that you're not rambling. This is not a point to prove there, right? So we have to be disciplined about how much time we have, how we can keep it crisp and remain focused on what outcome we want to achieve. Now, not understanding the why behind the ceremonies. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why you bring in other things to discuss. Whatever you discuss sometimes is not effective, and it's not useful, so people lose faith in that. Those kind of things happen, right? So let's take an example of a stand-up meeting. The real purpose is to actually, as a team, to see whether we are making progress towards achieving our sprint goals, and is there something that's blocking us or something that we see as a risk where we'll not be able to finish. So the whole stand-up meeting is for the team, but it actually becomes a status update meeting. Like somebody is reporting to the boss and they want to show that they have done some work yesterday, and that's what the focus is, right? So I'll give you one example which I see in stand-up meetings where people don't understand the why. They're just going through the motions. All right. So let's say I am a developer and it's my turn to speak. Okay. So yesterday I worked on story 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Today also I'm going to continue working on story 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are no blockers. How useful is this update for the team? Nothing. Right. Whereas I can say, oh, yesterday I picked up a story which is related to the search functionality. I finished the backend part of it yesterday. Today I'll be working on the front end part. It looks like it's a new component. So Vishal, I might approach you for some help over there if I need it. Okay. As of now, I don't see blockers, but if I need help, I will come to you. Now, you see the difference, right? This is what is important in terms of understanding the why and making it more effective.
Yep.
Okay? Chickens distracting meetings is also a pattern. So I'm not sure how many of you are aware of the story of the pigs and chickens, which is stated where it's about, commitment versus involvement, right? And if there are people who are outside the team who come and talk and just distract the team, right? Then that can be a problem why ceremonies can take too long. Okay. This may not happen every ceremony, every what, but you need to discourage this. You need to be very sure who needs to be there in the meeting and who can talk. Sure, they can observe, but the conversation needs to happen later on. They cannot distract the core team from the meeting. Okay? The last team is too large. Yeah, you have 20 people in one team. You look at the communication overhead. How can you finish a stand-up meeting in 15 minutes if you have 20 people? No way, no way, right? And team cannot focus. The team checks out mentally. So it's important to make sure that you create smaller teams. Yes, they can be within the same project or the same program, but you can create different work streams. And those ceremonies should be related to the specific work stream. Of course, there needs to be touch points between the work streams, which can be managed. But a team being too large is definitely going to make your ceremonies last way beyond the time that it is supposed to. Okay. Any thoughts here? All right, we are close to time, so let me just move on. This is an interesting one, and this is what you raised, I think, earlier. I more than we. So if you hear team members when having conversations referring more to the I part rather than the we part, that's a smell. And that's a smell. It could be because of many reasons, but these are one of the main reasons, right? Silos within the team. You have different managers for different people who have different criteria. So it's all about, yeah, I only worry about doing my work. I don't care what happens to the rest is what leads to that I over we. Okay? Rewarding individual performance, especially heroism. Then when you do that and you reward individual performance over team performance, then people want to be heroes, and people will do stuff, and then it becomes more about the I than the we. Right? And the last is lack of team spirit. Basically, there is no trust. Team members. I mean, I've seen scenarios where somebody has decided, oh, we're going to adopt agile, so we'll have co-located team, right? And people are put in one room to say, our team is co-located at what? But if you go to the team, people sitting next to each other are sending emails to each other rather than having a conversation. Why? Because the trust is not there. And the reason why do you do that? See, I told you, right? So that CYA attitude and lack of trust, again, can cause that I bit more than the we. Okay. So I was just wondering again, right, if you have any thoughts on this part. And this is something to watch out for. It's a subtle sign, but it is a very important one.
Rewarding individual performance, especially heroism. So, Sunil, as I observed with many agile implementations that I have worked through, the root cause boils down to the appraisal system that we have.
Yes,
right?
It is that.
So if we, they talk a lot about flat hierarchy, everything. However, at the end of the day, they exercise the bell curve approach.
Yep.
And
Perfect.
you know what? With that, what happens is, it's a humanistic, a human behavior, right? That everybody wants the
behavior
spotlight.
For survival. It's a behavior for survival.
Absolutely. And then to bring the spotlight on my head, I will do anything and everything.
Yep, absolutely. So that's your priorities change. Your priority is not the team. Your priority is you're ensuring your own survival. Right. Yep. So okay, moving on, just concluding it, right? So a couple of things, right? We need to create awareness within the team, about these spells, and team should be aware that these are potential spells we need to watch. You need to recognize them and address them as early as possible. Don't postpone it, especially if you see a pattern. Like ignore the one-off, but if there's a pattern, you definitely. And it's not only the Scrum Master's responsibility to smell it. Everybody in the team, takes responsibility to recognize and address them. Sure, you may not be able to address them, but at least you can recognize, you can bring it up, regardless of the role that you play in the team. All right. So with that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
We have 1 more minute left.
I'm happy to stay back, but if you have any questions or comments or something, happy to have a discussion.
So, Sunil, we discussed all of the smells or anti-patterns that we can spot, that we can smell at the team level, right?
Yes.
How they are different from the smells at org level. So with some experience working at ART level, Agile Release Train level, with my role as a release train engineer and safe coach, few practices that we have at team level we scale them towards the art level, towards organization portfolio level. However, what are the major differences, or can you quickly summarize? And I think that will be a potential opportunity for us to regroup, to request you share some of the org smells at SMO2, at Scrum Masters of the Universe, in a dedicated meetup, of course.
So you gave one very good example of an org level smell, right? Which is like we spoke about the team behavior, I versus we, right?
Yeah.
And the root cause there is the bell curve. Okay, so that's an org level problem. It's not a team level problem. And there could be many such things where it can reflect in team behaviors, it can reflect in behaviors across teams, right? But the root cause is at the systemic level. It's the root cause is not at the team level. So any root cause which goes to the system, right? Where managers are not aligned. Yeah, where the organization structure is such that you're creating, it all boils down to creating silos, even at the team level. These are the kind of things which are there at the org level. But a bell curve is a great example of a problem which is there at the org level. Yeah.
Thanks, Sunil.
Any thoughts, any questions, any feedback for me on this session? Anything at all?
Awesome session.
Thank you so much.
Helen Brand is saying insightful presentation. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you at Scrum Masters of the Universe, and hope to regroup again for the org level smells in a dedicated meetup. We can take it separately. Thank you so much, Sunil. Thanks everyone for joining in. And Sunil, have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you and good evening. And once again, thank you for your time, for all of you, for the questions, and for the organizers for giving me a chance to share my thoughts with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. We will make the recording available on Scrum Master. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.